Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So for today's head-to-head comparison, we are going to take a look at the latest generation for the Toyota GR86 and the Mazda MX-5 Miata. Now I'm borrowing the Miata from HBI. Definitely take a look at their website. They're always getting in some very cool inventory, and the GR86 is my personal vehicle. So you can check out our 86 playlist for all of the modifications that I did to this car, as well as some more driving with just how that is. Now we've also been able to take both of these cars to the tail of the dragon. So if you want to see some more performance-oriented style driving, take a look at those separate videos. So for today's head-to-head comparison, let's start off with the MSRPs for these sports cars. So for the Toyota GR86, this starts right around $29,300. For the Miata, it starts around $30,100, so slightly more for the Mazda, but of course, when you go with some different options, they can really be spec'd the exact same. But let's move on to the engines now. For the 86, this has a 2.4 liter four-cylinder boxer engine. It's paired to an automatic or a manual transmission with 228 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. For the Mazda, this has a 2-liter four-cylinder engine, again paired to an automatic or a manual, 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque. So it does have less horsepower. However, when you look at 0 to 60 times, 6.1 seconds for the 86 and then 5.9 for the Miata. So very similar in their 0 to 60 times. Both of these are rear-wheel drive. We have curb weights of 2851 and 2400. So a lot lighter for the Miata, which is why the 0 to 60 time is fairly similar. Top speed is 135 and then 137. And as far as fuel economy goes, while these are sports cars and they have that performance to them, they're also very fuel efficient. So we have 21 and 31 for the GR86 and then 26 and 35 for the Miata. Now, as far as ground clearance goes, 5 inches and 5.3. So again, very similar. Well, let's work our way now to the exterior styling, where as you can tell, they are much different. For the 86, we have a large grille in the lower section with some points in the lower part of that bumper. On the Miata, a little bit smaller of a grille in the middle, still both retaining some cutouts. And then we have the small sections in the bottom of the bumper there. LED headlights, of course, for both of these, so a much different design. As you can tell, they are very thin for the Miata there, and there are some lights in the lower section too. And then hood lines are kind of similar. And as we move to the side now, obviously you can get a few different options. This is a base 86, so you can get a premium that has some different wheel options. You can get a few different options for the Miata as well. So for these two models, these are the wheels that you get, and I think they look nice for both of these stock wheels. We do have basic brakes on both of these. I think you can get an upgraded brake kit for the Mazda Miata if you get one of the higher trim levels. But for the 86, we have gloss black side mirror caps, body colored on the Miata. And then obviously the biggest difference between both of these vehicles is that we have a coupe and we have a hardtop convertible. So if you're looking for a convertible, you want a 2-seater, or you want a coupe and you have the back seat space if you want to use it. You can see that the GR86 is much longer as well. It weighs more, it's got a little bit more to it than the Miata. So very different in their side designs, as well as the 86 having the slower side skirt with a little bit more definition, and on the Miata it's pretty much flat and smooth the entire way back. But as we move on to the rear now, very small housings for these taillights. You do get a backup camera, some lights in the lower section, single exit exhaust, and then even though this is a hardtop, you still get trunk space. So there's a hidden button in the lower section, or you can use the key fob. And it's actually not all that bad, surprisingly, with being able to put the hardtop down. So this isn't affected. So for a convertible, you still have some usable space. I have a friend who owns one. It says daily driver, and you can definitely make that work. Now for the 86, obviously it's a little bit larger. We have the dual exhaust in the lower section and then larger taillight housings too. But you still have a trunk. So we have a button in the back. We're using the key fob. And as you can tell with all of our stuff in the back right now, it's pretty spacious. You can also fold the back seat down, which I have had to do to fit in some more items. So obviously, if you're looking for a little bit more practicality, you're going to get that with the 86. But let's take a look at the interiors now, where for this base model, it is what you would expect, pretty basic. We have some nice materials, your window adjustments, and then the back seats. Now at 5'10", that is not where I want to be. I've had one person in the back of this car one time, and that was just to go for a quick drive. But it's doable if you need that space or you want to put your kids in the back or something. I personally don't use the back seats as much, so I would have been okay with a Miata. But let's hop in now where we have that 6-speed manual transmission. And we can start this up. I really like the design for the steering wheel in this car. GR badge in the lower section there. We have all of your hand controls on both sides. Cruise control as well. And then trunk release. This is your gauge cluster. It's fairly simple. You can scroll through some stuff on that left side, but that's pretty much it. You have some other info, your music. You have a few settings to go into. Not a whole lot to go through, but you have what you need to see with your tack in the middle. You can also see what gear you're in. It's not going to show it now since I'm not moving, but that will appear right in the middle there. And then you have your infotainment system. You can use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You do have to hook it up, however. It's not wireless for this model. So you have basically what you need to use on a daily basis. Climates are laid out very well. We have all those other controls. 6-speed, of course, traction control. You have cup holders in that middle there too, and then the glove box as well. Visibility is also very easy to see. I haven't had any issues with that during my ownership time. Maybe a little bit over this side, but you have your side mirrors there too, which of course will help. So it's a pretty basic interior. For the price, that's what you're going to expect. And then obviously you can go up with a premium model if you want a little bit nicer materials and seats. For the Miata now, we have the entry, keyless entry there, just like we had on the 86. Carbon fiber like trim accents surrounding those window adjustments. And then as we hop into this, right off the bat, it is definitely much smaller. But we have almost the same engine start stop button there. And then very nice steering wheel with all of the similar controls. For the gauge cluster, it's pretty simple, just like you saw on the 86. I don't think there's any settings that you can go into. I haven't seen any adjustments here in order to scroll through that. So it looks like it's pretty fixed for the gauge cluster, but we have some settings that you can go into for your traction control, lane keeping assist. And then for this infotainment system, it is touch screen, it looks like, but you do have the controls down below where you can further go through this. So to me, it's just not something that I personally like as much as the 86. Obviously, I've been used to that. But it looks like you can scroll through a few things here, possibly hook up your phone to it as well. There's a little bit of space in the center armrest. Doesn't look like it's too large for many items, but you have some attachments here where you can place movable cup holders. There's a spot over here as well that you can put it, so you can move it within the interior here. We have the top operation, heated seats, some other auxiliaries, a little bit of storage there. And then there's no glove box, which is very interesting to note for the interior, but there is space in between the seats, which I believe would just be your glove box. And then with the top up, since the window's right there, you can pretty much see around that pillar. And then you have a little bit of a blind spot here, but you can move your head and use that side mirror there. And then obviously we have the manual transmission as well with your handbrake on that one side. You have your air vents too, which are nicely laid out. I do wish that screen was a little bit larger, but it's not bad. It doesn't feel too claustrophobic for its size, but again, for its price point, it's a pretty basic interior as well. So with the exteriors and interiors wrapped up, let's get both of these fun, affordable sports cars out on the road and see how they drive. So we're going to start off today's comparison with the MX-5 Miata. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm not doing any crazy performance driving today. If you want to see that, check out the Tail of the Dragon video where we really got to experience the full potential of this car. What I love about the Miata 2, aside from how affordable this car is the fact that it's one of the best handling cars that you can buy. When you're looking at a car like this and the 86, this is something that doesn't really have that straight line performance, but you can hang with cars that have a lot more power, especially on some twisty roads, just because of the nimbleness that this has with its curb weight under 3,000 pounds. I mean, you can carry the weight of this car, and you have a lot more potential with just being able to play with all of the gears. So it's a car that you can start to learn how to do some performance driving with without worrying about it being overpowered by any means. especially with the manual transmission. It definitely gives it more of that fun factor. It's very easy to drive too. So we have the light clutch pedal, shifters super engaging too. And just the handling of this is very, very direct. So if you're looking for a fun, affordable car, and you also want the hardtop convertible, you obviously don't get that with the 86. But this is definitely a fun car. It's something that you can daily drive. Like I said, my friend owns one and it is his only vehicle. He's 6'3", and it works for him. So you can be much taller than me at 5'10" and still fit in one of these cars. And it's something that he has a ball with. And as we have a few turns here that we can test for today. Like I said, it's so sharp in its turning. And being such a low car too, low center of gravity, it handles incredibly well. This one also has an aftermarket exhaust, so it's a little bit louder. So for a 4-cylinder, it still has a good sound to it. But if you're just looking for that performance style driving without the excessive speed, these are great options to go with. So with the MX-5 out of the way, let's jump into the 86 and see how that compares. And behind the wheel of the 86 now, we can give it a little bit more gas since this is my car. But honestly, these cars feel very, very similar. It was nice to get a refresh behind the wheel of the MX-5 because it has been some time. But when you really think about it, from the driver and passenger seat forwards, the car feels very identical. Obviously, there's a little bit different of a design element in the screen. Controls for AC are kind of similar, but everything has a very similar overall feel as far as the sizing goes. They both are pretty tight. I would say the Miata does feel a little bit tighter since I don't think it's quite as wide, but they both are small cars, of course, so it's what you would expect. But they feel very similar. Clutch pedals about the same, shifters about the same as far as how engaging it is. And I took the exhaust off of my car, so it's back to stock here. So it's not quite that loud, but with these 4-cylinders, you can really get a good sound out of both of the cars. But with the 86 here in general, handling is spot on. Like I said, just with the weight and what these cars are capable of, they are two of the best handling sports cars that are made. They're not two of the most powerful, but speed isn't everything. When you can really experience the handling of a car and with the manual transmission getting a little bit more driver engagement, that's really two main aspects that I really see as giving you the best driver focused and engaging car. They're both super easy to rev match too. And it's just a fun car. So it really boils down to, do you want a convertible or do you want a little bit more practicality with the back seats in this? And let's give it another acceleration. Roads are a little wet, but even with a mild acceleration, what I love about both of these cars is that you don't have to redline them to get up and move. My car redlines around 7,500. The MX-5 was probably around there, 6,000, 6,500 or so. And you don't need to redline these cars to get up to speed. And I think that they have a good bit of power. Obviously, when you compare it to something with 400 or 500 horsepower, this is underpowered compared to other cars like that. So it's hard to judge if these are truly underpowered. I could definitely see them having some more horsepower. But even with that, I mean, there's only so much you can use out on public roads. And I feel like it's a good balance between having the power to get up to speed without, you know, tripling the speed limit or something like that, but also just giving you that good feel. Now let's also cover suspension real quick. I didn't mention that in the MX-5, but for the stock suspensions for both of these, they seem to be very nice. Now I did put an upgraded set of coilovers on my 86, and honestly it was a night and day difference. So if you're planning to do some more spirited type driving, modifications obviously depends on how you're driving the car, but in the stock form they're okay. But when you drive it with a different suspension, there's definitely a big difference. But for the 86, it's a really fun car. It's so hard to differentiate how they drive, because honestly, after driving them back to back and even driving them at the tail of the Dragon back to back, they are so close in how they drive. But let's do one last acceleration onto the highway. So pedal to the floor, and we're up to speed. So back from our test drives now between the Toyota GR86 and the Mazda MX-5 Miata. Honestly, both of these are truly phenomenal vehicles to drive, both very similar in their price as well as their performance too. So it really just boils down to, do you want a hardtop convertible, or do you want a little bit more interior space with the back seating of the 86? So like I said, my friend has a Mazda Miata, I have the 86. Both are just as fun, and taking both of these through the tail of the Dragon was a phenomenal experience when we had the opportunity to do that. They were both two of the most fun cars that we drove through the Dragon on that day. So honestly, you really can't go wrong with either one. Just depends on your preference and what you are looking to get out of your vehicle. If you want maybe a second car with the Miata for that convertible, or if this is your only vehicle, the 86 I think just gives you a little bit more practicality to daily drive it. Obviously you can daily drive the MX-5, but again, just depends on what your needs are and what you are looking to get. So I hope you enjoyed today's head-to-head comparison between both of these fun, affordable sports cars. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. We will see you all in the next video.